If World War III were to break out, which country would benefit the most? It's a dark question, one that forces us to confront an unthinkable scenario. A global war today, with modern technology, would be a catastrophe unlike anything humanity has ever seen. The devastation would be unimaginable. So, could any nation truly emerge better off? Let's explore this grim hypothetical. First, what does it even mean to benefit from a world war? We're not talking about a military victory in the traditional sense. In a global nuclear conflict, there are no winners, only survivors. Instead, benefit here means something different. It's about a nation's ability to maintain economic resilience, avoid catastrophic physical destruction on its own soil, and perhaps even gain geopolitical influence as the old world order crumbles. It's about being in a position to control vital resources, trade routes, or technologies in the aftermath. So, who wouldn't benefit? The major superpowers. Countries like the United States, China, and Russia would almost certainly be the primary targets. Their major cities, industrial centers, and military infrastructure would face direct, devastating attacks. The loss of life would be staggering, and their economies would be shattered for generations. Their global influence would evaporate overnight, replaced by chaos and a desperate struggle for survival. For them, a world war is a lose-lose scenario, a guaranteed path to ruin. This brings us to the key factors that could give a country an advantage in this nightmare landscape. The first is geographic isolation. Being far away from the main conflict zones in Europe, Asia, and North America is a huge plus. Think of countries tucked away in the southern hemisphere, protected by vast oceans. The second is self-sufficiency. A nation that can feed its people, power its grid, and source its own raw materials without relying on fragile global supply chains would be in a powerful position. Third is political neutrality. A country that manages to stay out of the fight could become a safe haven for capital, talent, and even diplomacy, acting as a mediator in a broken world. Finally, having a strong defensive military rather than an offensive one would help deter any opportunistic attacks without dragging them into the main conflict. With these factors in mind, a few types of countries often come up in this discussion. First, geographically isolated nations. Think about countries in South America, parts of Africa, or Oceania. They are far from the likely front lines, making them difficult and low-priority targets. Second, resource-rich states. Countries with abundant farmland, energy reserves, and minerals could not only sustain themselves, but also become critical suppliers to what's left of the global economy. A nation that can export food when the world is starving or energy when global supplies are cut off holds immense power. Then there are the neutral countries. Historically, nations like Switzerland have prospered by acting as safe financial centers during global conflicts. In a World War III scenario, a neutral country with a stable government and a strong economy could become a hub for international organizations, a keeper of treaties, and a destination for wealth-seeking refuge from the storm. As the major powers exhaust themselves, a power vacuum would emerge. This is where smaller and mid-power states could see their influence rise. With the giants fallen, regional players could step up to lead new alliances. They could attract investment and skilled people fleeing the devastated areas. Countries that were once on the periphery could suddenly find themselves at the center of a new, reconfigured world. Imagine a nation in Southeast Asia or South America becoming a new hub for technology and finance simply because it was spared the destruction. Economically, the winners would be predictable in some ways. Defense industries would boom, of course. But more fundamentally, anyone producing the absolute essentials for survival would hold all the cards. Exporters of food, energy, and raw materials would see their wealth and influence skyrocket. Countries that control key shipping lanes that remain open, or those that can offer alternative trade routes away from conflict zones, would become indispensable. They would be the gatekeepers of the new global economy. In the long term, the consequences would be a complete reset of the global order. The institutions that have governed the world since World War II, like the United Nations and the World Bank, would likely collapse or become irrelevant. New centers of political and economic power would emerge from the ashes. Alliances would be redrawn, and the very definition of global governance would be up for debate. The world map of influence would look completely different. But we have to talk about the moral paradox here. Is it even right to talk about benefiting from a catastrophe that would cause such immense human suffering? Any strategic gain or economic advantage would be built on the graves of millions, if not billions. The human cost is so profound that any notion of winning feels obscene. The benefit is always relative, always temporary, and always stained by the tragedy of war. So, if World War III breaks out, which country would benefit the most? The honest answer is no one. The real victory in a global war isn't about gaining power or wealth. It's about survival. Any country that manages to stay relatively intact would simply be the best off among the ruins. The prize would be a broken world, a traumatized global population, and a future shrouded in uncertainty. Perhaps the better question isn't who would win, but how we can ensure that we never have to find out. Thanks for watching. What are your thoughts on this? Let me know in the comments below. And if you found this thought-provoking, please consider liking and subscribing for more deep dives into complex global questions.